So yeah, what are you doing?
Right now? Or
Yeah, right now, what are you doing?
so what we're doing is we're going to be setting out so that we can redress the stones. Every time we put X amount of pounds of wheat through the stones, we have to be resharpening them. So it's just like a knife. As you're cutting with a really sharp knife, you're going to be getting really nice cuts, and it's going to be very easy. But as the knife gets dull and you're continuing to use it, the cuts are going to be harder and less clean. We need to make sure that the stones are redressed or sharpened, in other words, so that we can be milling at efficiency and also milling a little bit quicker too, because if you have a sharp knife, it's going to be easier to just cut through whatever you're cutting through. Same thing with the mills. If they're sharp, they're going to be able to mill the wheat faster and better than if they were dull.
We are in Blauvelt, New York, which is 5 miles from where we bake our bagels and maybe 10 miles from where we make our bread. We selected this site because it's close to Peter Martin's farm in the Finger Lakes region of New York to source wheat, and we're right next to where we make our products. So what we're trying to do is take something that's been done for centuries and scale it up. And that creates unique challenges. So we have 3 mills put together with a pneumatic system to be able to mill a lot of wheat at once. And if you're running them 10 hours a day for 6 months, at some point those stones need to be resharpened, recalibrated to get the ideal amount of flour. It's not an easy process, but we chose this process because it's the best way to mill wheat, keep everything good in that wheat berry. The important thing about today is Andrew Hein is our mill builder, and he's an expert in how to get these things kind of optimally running. And so we're going to learn as much as we can from him to be able to do it ourselves.
My name is Andrew Hein. I own New American Stone Mills, which we started in 2015. We build natural granite stone mills for bakeries and artisan mills and farms. Today we are redressing the mills at One Mighty Mill. After several thousand tons of grains necessary to sharpen the stones. And so that process involves taking the mill apart and resharpening the stones so that they mill more efficiently. The goal today is to share this knowledge and teach the One Mighty Mill staff so that they can maintain the mills themselves.
So I'm Luke, I work for New American Stone Mills. Right now I'm doing some of the stonework, which I haven't done in a while, but I'm using the light and this crayon to kind of illuminate the glazed over areas of the stone. The stone, as it runs over time, it wears itself down, and it kind of shows itself the high spots by glazing the stone, almost polishing it, as opposed to this rough texture that we want. So I'm just marking all of those kind of glazed high spots with this crayon, and then I'll go through and I'll break it up, rough up the surface again, with the goal of getting those 2 stones to run more smoothly together.
Entonces, este aquí es lo plano, que le dicen el land, que se traduce a tierra. Después, este es el furrow, sino la bajadita.
Because when they go across each other, the grain, it drops into here, and then it goes up here. And so the angle here is really important.
Es muy importante el ángulo de acá, porque cuando el trigo está cayendo, pasa por la tierra y después cae.
We are documenting how to best maintain our mills to get the best output. There's a commitment to learning across our company, and so this is why it's important to have Matteo here translating what Andrew is saying so that our millers who recently just started with us said they could eventually become expert millers and understand this process.
Entonces ahí tiene que estar atrapado para que lo corte como tijeritas.
And so the problem here from redressing is these are they're too shallow. They need to be deeper.
The furrow is or the land?
Furrow is here.
¿Cómo le vamos a llamar a esto?
El ángulo que dice ranura, algo así.
Ranura. La ranura está muy bajita y está permitiendo que el trigo continúe. No se está quedando atascado para que lo corte.
The problem here, you can feel the shape here is more like this shape.
Entonces tienen que hacerlos más, el ángulo más...
¿Hondo?
Sí, más hondo.
Ok. Bajarle más aquí.
Exacto.
Ok, sí, porque aquí no tiene la misma, como que está más plano aquí que acá, ¿no?
Exacto.
Okay.
So the process of redressing the stones uses a stone sculpting tool, which is an air hammer and a carbide chisel. And we're roughing the stone up to make it mill more efficiently.
Lo que se haría verdaderamente es solamente con el martillo hacer estas tierras que son las partes planas más rústicas. No hay que hacerle tanta reparación. La reparación pasa cuando no se pone esto rústico parejo y empiezan a comerse las secciones de las piedras más que otras.
What I usually try to do is indicate where I want to hammer and where I need to bring it down, as opposed to where I don't want to hammer. So the way I identify that is I like to use a bright light like this, and so everywhere you see a glare from the light where it's shiny, it's high, it has to be roughed up.
Yeah.
Anywhere you don't see a glare, that means it's still rough and we
Gotcha. Entonces,
so like this feels smooth, but there's no glare. No, this is all glare.
lo que él está haciendo ahora mismo es viendo los puntos que estaban altos, porque cuando estaban altos ya están más suave y cuando él le pone la luz se refleja.
Usually I'll color it with a crayon like this, where it's high, and then I'll hammer the crayon off, and that's usually enough to know that you've removed that.
Entonces él usa la crayola para marcar ese punto que está suave, porque eso nos deja saber que era un punto alto, que se estaba pegando más con la otra piedra. Y lo que hace es, lo marcó con la crayola y la idea es que con el martillo le dan martillazo hasta que la crayola salga y se va repitiendo hasta que quede parejito. Si pasa eso, en este lado.
So when we hammer it, ideally we would just want to hammer around it. No, this.
Entonces en esta ocasión se martillaría hasta alrededor, no acá.
Eventually it'll wear in.
Para que en el futuro se vayan emparejando. Porque acordémonos, el martillo lo que está haciendo es removiendo materia. No hay manera de agregarle. Entonces, este es el martillo que se usa para sacarle el filo, pero no es un martillo para solamente martillar y destruir, sino que es más para darle escultura.
The more you sand it, the smoother it gets, right?
Yeah.
With this, the more you hammer it, the rougher it gets.
Entonces, lo que estamos haciendo es al revés. También lijando, pero en vez de ponerlo suave, lo estamos poniendo rústico. Ese es nuevo, entonces tiene más filo.
With this one, my preference is I'm right-handed, so one hand here, one hand here. Keep it.
I'll show you how to do the furrows now since it's marked up. And, so after we do all of the lands, the stone is going to be lower.
Yep.
So we need to keep this in the right proportion to this. That's what was missing. So the way you do that is, in this case, you're trying to match the angle of the furrow. So we're not strapping down this way, right?
Okay.
We're going to do the same thing where we're trying to turn it from dark gray to this lighter white gray. Okay. That's a good indicator that you've removed. Because these points are in a line like this, what I'll often do is either do this and then I'll come back and blend it in, or if you're a little bit more comfortable, what I was doing here is I was holding it this way, and then that way you can blend it in instead of cutting lines.
Entonces ahí ya está bien.
Okay.
How about here?
Yeah.
What they're doing right now is roughening up the lands and also resharpening the furrows so that when we start milling again, we can be milling with more efficiency and better. Está muy puntudo, hay que volverlo a redondar. Él llegó y cogió esto, lo marcó un cuarto. Un cuarto y le hizo la línea.
Mm-hmm. And so now when they hammer, they don't have to hammer this. Because it's curved over, it's not going to touch this stone. Yeah, so I use this. This doesn't have to be done every time. This is only after the stone starts to get lower. I traced a line like that, and then I ground it at a 45, and then just to kind of round it over. Because what happens is when it gets like this, then it gets really brittle and it can break.
That seems like, how do you get straight lines?
We'll use a tile saw for that. So we actually have a tapered, it's a track saw, but a tie with a tile blade on it, and then we'll line that up and we'll cut this back edge so that it's shallow here and 1/4 inch deep there. And then we'll draw this profile and then freehand it in. Yeah. We tried to figure out different types of ways of setting up jigs, but once you learn how to do it, it's not too hard.
My name is Marcus, and I'm the head of logistics. We're losing a little bit of yield percentage on the flour, so maintenance was due. So usually it takes 4 to 6 hours for one mill. They're doing the 3 mills at a time, and that's why we have so many people here. Because there's a couple doing one, there's another team doing another one. So we're trying to save time, but yeah, usually it takes 4 to 6 hours. It is so worth it because we're making a really good product. Doing it this way, we're not stripping all the nutrients, all the minerals, all the good stuff from the meat that our body needs. Yeah, that's why we're doing it the best way. That's why your bread or bagels, it has shorter shelf life. Because it's pretty much alive. It has all the good germs and stuff. You know what I mean? And that's what they don't do with the older systems that they use.
I think what we've learned is that these mills take a beating. You have to be really precise about getting them back to where they were. We're basically dealing with two granite stones, and they're going to be grinding against each other. Every 6 months, you're going to have to get them back to where they were. You know, it's a reality. It's an additional cost to what we're doing, but we think it kind of is worth it.